Good day, everyone. As a part of a requirement for our subject, gender sensitivity and laws on women and children's rights, we, the group of three women from 3JD-B, decided to report on the long-standing preference for sons over daughters and the practice of male primogeniture. So this bias, as we believe, is still present in many cultures today, and it really affects family structures as well as the rights of women and girls. So, by exploring the reasons behind this phenomenon, we aim in this report to highlight its impact and encourage discussions on how to promote greater gender equity. So, our report will be divided into three. We're going to have a discussion first with the issue and the effects on women of the said topic to be discussed by Miss Bai Donessa Mae Utto. And then the second will be the school of thought that we can use to study this topic, which will be discussed by yours truly, Miss Sherlaine Banaag. And lastly, we're going to talk about the different laws that are violated as well as the rights and the actions that is made to fight this very issue about the gender equality within the family, which will be discussed by Ms. Lianne A. Guzman. So we were going to discuss first the issue as well as the effects on women by Ms. Utto.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Bai Donessa Mae Utto, and I'll be discussing the part one, which is the define and describe the issue and effects on women. So the preference of sons over daughters refers to cultural, social, and economic biases that favor male children over female children in areas such as inheritance, education, and decision making. So male primogeniture is a traditional system where the eldest son inherits the family estate, wealth, or title, often to exclusion of daughters. So this practice is deeply rooted in patriarchal traditions and is prevalent in many societies, particularly in Asia, Africa, and parts of Europe. It has historical connections to property rights, lineage preservation, and societal status. So the following are the effects on women. First is the early marriages and financial dependence. So women may be pushed into early marriages due to lack of financial independence. Second is the psychological and social impact. So women experience lower self-worth and discrimination. Third is the sex-selective practices. So the preference for sons leads to gender imbalances due to sex-selective abortion or neglect of female children. Number 4 is the educational disparities. So based on observation, most of the families, especially those well-off, tend to prioritize sons' education, resulting to limiting daughters' access to opportunities. The last one is the limited inheritance rights. So daughters are often excluded from inheriting property or wealth, leaving them economically disadvantaged.
Now we're going to move on to the next topic, which will be about the school of thought. So the school of thought that we're going to discuss here is the dominance theory. So dominance theory posits that patriarchal structures which promote male authority and dominance shape family dynamics, social norms, and individual behaviors. So This theory provides a compelling framework for understanding the preference for sons over daughters, particularly in cultures that value male primogeniture. So, in relation with the discussion of Ms. Utto regarding the effects on women, I'm going to discuss the dominance theory for each of them. So, the first one is the early marriages and financial dependence. So, in societies that prioritize sons, daughters often face pressure to marry early. And this can be attributed to the lack of perceived value in female children, who are often seen as financial burdens rather than future contributors. So, early marriages typically curtail educational as well as career opportunities for women, which fosters a cycle of dependency on their husbands or families for financial support. So, this dependence can actually perpetuate power imbalances within the family, which limits women's autonomy and decision making capabilities. Next is on the aspect of psychological and social impact. So the preference for sons can significantly impact one woman's mental health and social standing. So growing up in environments where sons are favored can lead to feelings of inadequacy as well as lower self-worth among daughters. So because of such environments, it may foster discrimination, which is both from within families as well as to the society at large. Next is the sex selective practices. So the dominance of male preference can also lead to alarming practices such as sex selective abortions, as well as the neglect of female children. If we're going to look at the societies where sons are valued more highly than daughters, families may resort to gender biased medical practices to ensure the birth of male offspring. So the resulting gender imbalances can actually strain social structures and as well as diminish the status of women. Next is in the case of educational disparities. In families that exhibit a strong preference for sons, we cannot deny the fact that educational resources and opportunities are often disproportionately allocated to male children. So the prioritization limits the daughter's access to education, which is eventually very crucial for their economic empowerment and personal development. The lack of educational opportunities not only affect women's immediate circumstances, but they also diminishes the prospects for future employment. And because of that, they are more highly dependent to their future husbands. Next, the last effect on women is actually the limited inheritance rights. So through the dominance theory, we can now look at here in a sense that the norms surrounding the male primogeniture actually result in daughters being excluded from inheriting property or wealth. And because of this system, it leaves women without significant economic assets. And because of that, it reinforces their financial dependence on male relatives or spouses. So inheritance patterns which favor sons actually contribute to the wider economic inequalities, and it limit women's ability to build their own wealth and attain financial independence. And with that, looking through the dominance theory, we can now conclude that it illuminates the systemic structures that actually resulted to preference for sons over daughters and male primogeniture. So knowing the different issues through the lens of the dominance theory, we will be able to address it through requiring women empowerment, challenging patriarchal norms, as well as promoting gender equity in all aspects of our society.
Thank you very much. So in this part of our report, we would like to discuss what are the women's rights and the laws that are being violated by this issue on preference of sons over daughters. I would like to reiterate that choosing this topic is very close to each of us as members of this group, as all of us are daughters and we have a brother. Though while it is actually very far that there are preference in our households over of sons over daughters, it's very important to discuss this issue on the perspective, of course, of a woman, okay, in a household. So the first right that is being violated by this issue we highlighted is that the right to equal treatment in matters related to marriage and family relations. It is emphasized that this issue on the preference of sons over daughters actually stems from the strong reliance on gender roles. And we are not actually new to the issue because Philippines can be somehow still considered as a conservative country, okay, and that treats men more superior than women. However, this issue stems from the fact that males are often treated as the head of the family. They are the provider. They are the one to make huge decisions that will affect the family members. As a result, parents prefer a son whom they believe that will lead the family and the next generations to come. So what are the effects on this on women or to those daughters? Consequently, the daughters have limited opportunity to voice their opinions even on family decisions. They have restricted involvement even on matters affecting even their own sake or for their own good. They have limited opinions on that. And also, as mentioned by my team members earlier, what is really being highlighted in this issue is that they are given less inheritance than the sons. And this is very important to tackle because especially now we are living in a more liberated society and more open community, and I think a lot of people would I think a lot of people would see now women as also a head of the family, especially those single parents, especially those are solo parents. So in this case, our group believes that it is very important to address the rights to equal treatment, even to marriage and family relations. And of course, not to restrict women as only a wife or a person who will just stay at home and take care of the family. They can also be they can also be the head of the family, and they can also be the provider and the main decision maker of the family. The next right, in relation to what was discussed earlier by my teammates, is also the right to equal access and elimination of discrimination against women in education, scholarships, and training. So these rights violated in a way that men are actually given more opportunity in terms of choosing their career paths, because once again, these parents who prefer sons over daughters believes that the son would actually take care of the family even when they're gone, or the person in charge, okay, even for the next generations to come. And as to the daughters, they believe that they will get wed or married eventually, and that they will take care of their own family. However, this thinking or this perspective limits the women's rights to access to education, even scholarships and training. The effect is that because they prefer the sons to have wider choices of career options, the daughters have limited choices. For example, they are set to just study in a school closer to their homes. However, these schools have limited career options, or in other cases, they are just given, like, the family gives them options on what to take as a career path, and that is limited and maybe contrary to what they really want to achieve or they want to really pursue. So this preference over sons greatly affects the career options and education opportunities for women. The next right that is violated by this issue is the right to protection against all kinds of violence. In this aspect of our report, we have actually we have really read a research made by the United Nations Population Fund that says that the daughter discrimination results in poorer health and well-being, as well as reduced capabilities and opportunities as households allocate more resources towards their sons than their daughters. So, right of protection against all kinds of violence, this includes psychological violence, even physical violence, and economic violence. So, because of this preference, this partiality in favor of sons, there are the daughters, even in their own household. It must be noted that family is still the basic social institution, and even violence can even homes can be venue of violence. So with the preference of sons over daughters, it became an avenue to treat or for the daughters to experience maltreatment and such kind of violence. But in relation to the economic violence, as mentioned, those limited choices in career options and limited preference in terms of an education aspect. And also, because of this preference of sons over daughters, some women are forced to are exposed to the increased risk of reproductive coercion, such as sexual, physical, and as mentioned, economic violence by intimate partners or family members just because they want a son. So it is really an alarming and a very important issue to tackle when it comes to all kinds of violence experienced by daughters and women of the family. The next right would be the right against stereotypes. So the right against stereotypes is actually also provided in the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women by United Nations, in which the Philippines is signatory. So the right against stereotypes is obviously one of the rights violated by the preference of sons over daughters. It's because of the long-standing belief that men are better than women, that men should be given more opportunities, that men are physiologically and mentally more capable than women. So these stereotypes that daughters and mothers or women should just stay at home and take care of the family, and eventually just restrict themselves in taking care of the family and not pursuing a career on their own is a violation of these stereotypes. We believe our group strongly believes that the stereotypes of women, despite many movements of women empowerment now, is still prevalent in many places, and especially here in the Philippines. So, in connection with these rights, these are the laws and statutes that are being violated by the issue on preference of sons over daughters. So I'm just gonna run through of all of this one. So the first one would be actually, the first one should be what is provided in the 1987 Constitution under Section 14, which states that the state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. So obviously, the preference is very contrary and contradicting to the provision of the Constitution. Also, we have the Republic Act number 9710, or the Magna Carta of Women. So the Magna Carta of Women is a comprehensive law on women's human rights that seeks to eliminate discrimination through the recognition, protection, fulfillment, and promotion of the rights of Filipino women, especially those belonging to the marginalized sectors of society. The next would be the Republic Act number 9262, otherwise known as the VAUC, or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act of 2004. So this law addressed the prevalence of violence against women and their children by their intimate partners, like their husband or ex-husband, live-in partner, or former live-in partner, boyfriend or girlfriend, or ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, dating partner, or former dating partner. So this law against VAUC is actually one of the laws that can be really relate to this issue on the preference of sons over daughters. And then lastly, in the international arena, we have, as mentioned, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is adopted in 1979 by the United Nations. It is the International Bill of Rights for Women. and it defines what constitutes discrimination against women and sets up an agenda for national action to end this discrimination. So the last part of our report would be to tackle what are the actions or movements to resolve this issue. So the issue on male primogeniture has been addressed through a combination of three categories: the legal challenges, the legislative changes, and the evolving societal norms. So in international level, in international legal arena, issues have been addressed through court decisions and international conventions. Actually, in the recent years, there has been landmark court cases that have played a crucial role in dismantling these discriminatory practices. One good example is the case of Bev versus Magistrate Kayelitsha, a case that was a pivotal moment when the court declared the rule on male primogeniture unconstitutional. So this is actually an express dismantling of the issue on the preference of sons over daughters and the male primogeniture. And then, of course, we have the international human rights law, including the treaties and conventions, kagaya nung earlier kanina, which is yung CEDAW. And then we have the legal frameworks emphasizing the importance of gender equality and prohibit discrimination inheritance. So we also have, Yeah. So in domestic level or here in the Philippines, this is actually likewise divided into three, which is number one is the emphasis on gender equality in legislation. While we have the Magna Carta of Women, or the Republic of 1997-10, and also the RA 9262, which is the anti-VAUC, they're still developing legislations and executing statutes to further uphold gender equality. So aside from that, we also have the education and awareness campaigns, and I think this is more closer to us students and also to the youth, because education and awareness campaigns, especially now that it is National Women's Month, there has been a lot of educational materials, videos that makes us understand the actual plight of women, and how are we going to fight the stereotypes and the discrimination nowadays. And lastly, we have the empowerment of women. So this one is more on an expressed and active participation of women in education, workforce, politics, which is challenging traditional gender roles and demonstrating the value of daughters. So aside from that, empowerment of women also includes the creation and assembly of women's organization. So right now we have a lot of organization that is mainly women oriented, and the members are women, so as to encourage other women to speak up on discrimination, to fight violence, and to fight the stereotype. Yeah. So that will be all for the discussion of the preference of sons over daughters. This topic once again is very special to all of us, not only because it is required in this subject, but also because as women we see this perspective in a deeper sense. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you so much, Attorney Ida.